All right, everyone, haven't been recording as much this summer, just really been focusing on the tournament grind, but wanted to record this one at the Venetian, especially since I'm going to be working with them. More details to come here in a bit, but this is an $800 bounty. The bounties are worth $200 before the money and then $1,000 after the money, so let's get into it. Shortly into the tournament, we're down a bit off of the 25K starting stack when I look down at 10-9, 8-7 double suited in the small blind. There's an early position raise to 700, one caller. I then make it 3K, and surprisingly both players fold, so we're going to take this one down. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at ace-9, 7-7, single suited under the gun. I limp. Next player makes it 1,000. There are 3 callers, and I also call, so we're going 5 ways to a flop. The flop comes out about as good as it can possibly get for this hand, an 8-7-3 with 2 diamonds. I check. The original raiser c-bets 3K. Over to the next player who puts everything in the middle for 8,500. One player folds to the cutoff who decides to do the same with 25K. I'm of course not going anywhere with this hand, so I call it off as well. The original raiser is the big stack at the table, and he says what the hell and calls it off. So we're going 4 ways to a run out. The turn brings the jack of spades. River brings the 2 of spades. The player to my left ends up turning over the jack 10, 9-5. So he flopped the wrap and got there on the turn, and he's going to end up scooping the entire pot here. I ended up running the numbers on the previous hand, and as you can see, I almost had 60% equity, which is pretty difficult to do 4 ways. I often tell students of mine that really in PLO, you're not going to often get people to fold. What you're trying to do is really just out equity people. If I can consistently get the money in with 60% equity, I'm going to win in the long run. But obviously here it didn't work out, so on to bullet 2. But before that, just a quick announcement.
What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So we're looking at the famous love sign that is between the Venetian and Palazzo. You guys have all probably walked by it, most likely probably taken a picture at it too. But the reason I'm showing you this is because Venetian is actually opening a brand new poker room. It's going to be August 1st, and I'm actually going to be working with them over the next 6 months to bring you 4 different meetup games, the first of which is going to be that grand opening weekend. So I'm going to bring them a PLO mix, which is a round of PLO, a round of 5-card high-low, otherwise known as Big O, a round of $10 double board bomb pots. We're also going to add in the $10 small blind jackpot. So this is where the player on the button is going to add $10 on top of the button, and the only player that can win this is the player in the small blind. Now, if the player in the small blind does not scoop the pot, this $10 just continues to accumulate. And, we've had it up to $300 in some of our previous meetup games. And as you can imagine, it's going to spice up the game quite a bit. Now, this game is going to be a 1-2 blind, $5 bring-in, $100 to 1K buy-in. So even if you're a PLO player, maybe you don't really know Big O, you don't know bomb pots that well, this is going to be a really fun game just for you to try to, branch into those games as they are becoming quite popular. Now, the poker room is just over here over my shoulder. It's literally right between where I was just walking over the love sign. You got Sushi Samba down there. The easiest way to get here is to park at P2 of the parking garage. Tommy and his team, they're going to designate 100 spots to poker players. So park at P2, you literally just hop on the elevator, hit level 2 for the Grand Canal shops, and you can literally get from your car to the poker room in under a minute, which will definitely be one of the probably the shortest walk, compared to some of these other extensive walks you have to other rooms in town. So besides the designated parking spots, there's also going to be a self-service drink station. There's going to be safety deposit boxes for the players. Really a number of food and drink specials. They're really committed to making this the best poker room in town if it's not already. So, grand opening weekend, August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Feel free to comment down below, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. And really looking forward to seeing you guys out there. Take care.
Shortly into bullet 2, I look down at ace-ace jack-9 single suited in middle position. There's an early position limp. I make it 1,400, and there are 3 callers, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes down jack-deuce-deuce with 2 clubs. Checks to me, I bet 2,500, and only the player to my right makes the call, so we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings another jack. My opponent checks once again. I bet 7,100, and he quickly folds, so we're going to take this one down. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at 10-10, 9-7, single suited in the hijack. There are a couple limpers to me. I also limp, 3 limps behind, and we're going 7 ways to a flop. The flop comes down queen 10-7 rainbow. Checks to me, I bet 2,100, and only 1 early position player calls. We're going heads up to a turn. Turn brings a 3, so shouldn't really change anything. My opponent checks once again. This time I size up to 7K, definitely want to charge him the maximum for any kind of potential straight draw, and he thinks a bit and makes the call once again, so heads up to a river. The river brings a king, so obviously not a great card, brings in quite a bit of straights, and my opponent checks again. I don't think at this point I can get value from any kind of two pair or lower set potentially, so I check back and I turn it over and we're good. So happy to take down another pot here. So I mentioned earlier that you have to play very tight in these bounty tournaments because people are going to see those bounties and really just want to call you with anything. So this was a hand earlier I didn't record, but they went 5 ways to a flop, Jack 8-5 rainbow, small blind shove for 3K, other players shove for 10K, cutoff reshove for 25K. Small blind ended up having 8s, pretty standard. Middle position had a queen 10-9 wrap, pretty standard, but the cutoff showed queen 3 deuce. So that just kind of shows that people are pretty much willing to call with anything. I mean, queen 3 deuce on that board is definitely very adventurous, I'll say that. So just shows really have to be very snug when, especially when you're the short stack and you going all in means those bounties are up for grabs. A little while after the previous hand, blinds are now up. I look down at king 5-4-3 rainbow in the big blind. So pretty bad hand, but under the gun makes it 1600. There are 3 callers to me, so getting a really good price. I also decide to call, and we're going 5 ways to a flop. Flop comes out 9-3 deuce rainbow. I check. The original raiser bets 3500. Next player calls, folds to me, and I also call. So we're going 3 ways to a turn. Turn brings a 4, so obviously not exactly what I was looking for, but does improve us now to 2 pair. I check, under the gun does the same, and late position checks back as well. So still going 3 ways to a river. River brings a 7, so in the moment, I wasn't really sure if I was bluffing or going for value. So I ended up sizing up to 11,600. The under the gun player quickly folded, and the late position player took a little bit before also folding. I assumed that I was probably, bluffing with the best hand here. Probably could have sized down to potentially get a crying call from an overpair, but nonetheless, we're going to take this one down. Blinds are now up to 501K. I look down at ace jack 9-7 single suit in the big blind. There are a couple limpers. I make it 4K as I figure to have the best hand here, and both players make the call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes down queen 8-7 with 2 hearts. Small blind doesn't waste too much time before potting it. I fold, the late position player takes a bit and puts everything in the middle, and small blind quickly calls, so they're going heads up to a run out. The late position player turned over the ace 10-10-5 with the nut flush draw, and the player to my right has the 9-8-7-6, so he's got 2 pair and an open-ended. Turn brings a king of spades, river brings the deuce of diamonds, so small blind's 2 pair is going to take this one down. About an orbit later, I look down at ace 6-4-3 double suited in the big blind. Fold to the button who makes it 3,500. The small blind calls and I also call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes out ace king jack rainbow. Checks to me, I check, and the button also checks. So still going 3 ways to a turn. The turn brings the queen of hearts, bringing in the backdoor flush draw. Checks to me, I bet 6K this time. Button folds and the small blind ends up making the call. So we're going heads up to a river. At this point, I'm really putting my opponent on a heart draw, especially since I don't have any hearts in my hand. The river brings out a 4 spades. My opponent checks again. I just got to continue telling the story, and I bet 16,500. My opponent thinks a bit. He ends up turning over the ace jack of clubs and ends up mucking. So happy to get this one through. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at king 6-4-4 double suited in the big blind. Folds with the small blind who calls, and I check my option. We're going heads up to a flop. Flop comes out 5-5-3 rainbow. My opponent bets 3K, and I make the call. So we're going heads up still to a turn. The turn brings an 8 of clubs, now giving us a backdoor flush draw. My opponent checks, and I'm happy to take a free card, so I check as well. Still going heads up to a river. The river brings the ace of clubs, now giving us the nut flush. My opponent now bets 6K, and I don't see much point of raising here, so I make the call. My opponent turns over the 8-6-4 deuce for the rivered wheel, and of course I turn it over, and we're going to take this one down. I go card dead for a while. This hand is over an hour after the previous one when I look down at the ace, queen, queen, jack, single suited in the small blind. There's a middle position limp. The button does the same. I also call, and the big blind checks his option, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes out queen 6 deuce with 2 hearts. I checks all the way to the button who bets 10K. And at this point, with just under a pot size bet left, I go ahead and make it 40K. Folds back to the button who ends up tanking for a while. And this was one of those situations where Despite the fact that I have the current nuts, this player has gone from big stack, he was down to probably like 5K, ended up getting all in, way behind, ended up surviving, and is now probably the tournament chip leader with over 200K. So this guy has pretty much hit everything. He doesn't like folding, and it was one of those situations where honestly I didn't mind a fold because I just kind of felt I was tempting fate going against this guy when he's on a hot streak, but he eventually ends up just throwing a stack of 5K chips in the middle. I of course call it off, and we're going heads up to a run out. My opponent turns over the Queen Jack 10-9 with the 10-9 of hearts, so he's basically drawing to backdoor straight cards or a heart. The turn brings in the front door flush right away with a 5 of hearts. River brings a king of spades, so no help to us, and the opponent's hot streak continues as I am eliminated here.
What's up guys, Wayne back here with you. So today I was in for the 2 bullets, total loss of $1,600. And that's how it goes sometimes in poker, you know, especially at tournaments where you get the money in good and you have to win those key spots to build a chip stack in advance, but obviously it doesn't always go your way. So just got to stay patient and keep firing those bullets, and hopefully your deep run will come. So just to recap on the Venetian grand opening poker room, that's gonna be August 1st. Ribbon cutting will be at 4 o'clock. Cards in the air should be around 4:30. The next day is Friday, 2 to 10 p.m. is when the official meetup game is. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely shoot me a text and I'll get you on the list. Also, Saturday, we just added a PLO bounty. That's a $300 tournament, $100 bounty per player, 15K guarantee. So really going to be an exciting weekend. There's going to be a ton of people there. You guys are really going to love the poker room. You know, I had a chance to check it out a couple weeks ago. It's really in a, you know, secluded area. They added more tables. It's going to be over 50 tables, which is going to make it the largest poker room in Vegas. So really excited to see you guys all out there. And some of you have requested that I share my results for the series. I'm going to go ahead and do that in a separate video. I'll link that up here. So if you're interested, check that out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.